I want to talk about self-esteem here. Explain how our self-esteem fuels our mental and physical wellness, and then how being physically fit also fuels our self-esteem.
It's an awesome question to ponder, because I think so many people, and this is an interesting question for me, Darren. It goes back to a time when I was looking at the whole field of health and wellness 30 years ago when I was my freshman year of college. And I was working as a caterer within a catering company in the town I was going to college in. And it was interesting because during that time I was reading Earl Nightingale's The Greatest Discovery book, a real classic. And then he was reading it's in a chapter around health, and it was around exercise and diet. This is a long time ago, so these were pretty, how should we say, early ideas of health and wellness. That night, I was at a party as a caterer. And I was in the restroom, and I was doing some cleanup area there, and this gentleman came out to wash his hands, and I knew the gentleman through the newspapers and through the news at that time. He was a wealthy man, a billionaire at the time, and he was also a man who was tremendously out of shape. He was very overweight. He had beads of sweat on his face, and you could just tell the man was in a lot of pain. He was very uncomfortable. And I didn't know the man, but he turned to me as he was walking out and said, "Trust me on this one. I would give away every penny if I could get my health back." And he looked at it again, he said, "Every single penny." And I thought that was one of those beautiful opportunities when the universe is speaking directly to you. Having read Earl Nightingale's chapter that morning, getting a chance to have that experience that night. And it spoke to me about the idea of self-esteem, and how often we chase self-esteem by going after success and the outward fringes, if you will. It's about the success which is going to be through our accomplishments and what we can acquire materially. And what I love about you, and I love and respect about the magazine Success, it's a very holistic idea. The material wealth is awesome. The power is fabulous. But truly what creates health and wellness and success in that wonderful place they meet is how good we feel about ourselves. Because when we feel wonderful about ourselves, we're going to do all kinds of wonderful things with our power, with our success, with our influence. We can truly become a game changer for everyone around us. And what's really interesting, Darren, this is a study that was read just literally last week, came out from the National Institutes of Health. And they're looking at teenagers and their relationship to physicality, exercise every day, and their self-esteem. What they found out is that teenagers who do not exercise have a 5 times increase to get involved with drugs, alcohol, truancy, and other challenges that face a lot of high schoolers. However, when they consistently exercise 5 days a week, involved with sports or their own home discipline of exercise, it literally changes that experience. And I think for all of us, we know the experience of walking out of the gym, coming out of a workout, getting out of a yoga practice, whatever the case may be. When we take good care of ourselves, there's a level of peace. There's a level of confidence. I've always loved to look at the idea of self-esteem as having that wonderful sense of yourself that you're always taking enough action. Satisfaction, that Latin word, taking enough action. Self-esteem knows the truth about you. And every single day we get the opportunity to show up for ourselves in our self-care. And when we close the gap on our good intentions and we follow through, self-esteem blossoms under the influence of exercise and good eating plans. The question is whether or not we're willing to take that trust walk and get into that place where we can fully realize that mission and allow ourselves to embrace it with the type of discipline we do other areas of our life, because this truly will serve every area of your life.
This perfectly leads me into this next question I've got for you. I've heard you talk a lot about a movement against mediocrity. So talk to us about this movement and how we can start our own personal movement against mediocrity. What do we mentally and physically need to do to step up our game towards success and away from mediocrity?
Well, number one, we have to give ourselves a hall pass. Let's get really clear about the one thing. We know that our brains and our bodies and our entire being physiologically, we're wired for comfort. We don't want, if you will, be outside of our comfort zone. It's homeostasis, bring us back to that place of balance. And we are truly wired for certain habits. If we wake up in the morning for many, many years and do a certain thing, that becomes just part of our being. We're hardwired for that habit. So what's interesting about that, it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of compassion to ask yourself if your present level of living is becoming mediocre. Is it really serving your highest intention? Is it really showing up for you and setting the life that you want to move forward in outside of mediocrity? When you raise your vibration to a place where you start really crushing the things that are really meaningful and doing it in a way that goes beyond your ego, but goes into a place that really starts to say, you know what, this is about service. Because here's what's awesome, Darren. We know this movement against mediocrity is about overcoming any sort of inertia in our life. Whether it's chemical, hardwired, whether our myelin works in our brains and our bodies, we have to give ourselves permission to start creating a new belief about what we want, have a bigger vision, have a bigger why. And when we do that, that starts to set a chemistry of events in way. We start to get ourselves in that place. We start to look at where we can identify areas in our life that we can start to up-level. Simple changes in our diet can do this. This is a beautiful thing, just starting to absolutely own the discipline of breakfast, starting to own the discipline of mid-morning, mid-afternoon snacking to keep our blood sugar in a good place, to actually augment our dopamine stores, to stay motivated, to stay confident. This beautiful idea is about giving yourself permission, again, to compassionately look at where you stand today and where you would love to be. What would you do if you were on fire with purpose? How would it look? What kind of purpose would I carry into my day? What kind of habits would reflect that type of passion? That's where we get our chance to move beyond mediocrity. And the beautiful thing about this, your body, your brain, your entire being is up for this. We are happiest when we stretch ourselves. There's a 1-inch space just beyond where we're comfortable, physiologically and I believe spiritually. And if we can access that place with intention, if we can give ourselves permission to go into that place and start creating habits that support that, your happiness will go up tremendously. And here's a wonderful, wonderful sidebar to this. We know that one of the greatest challenges to health and wellness, and frankly one of the greatest causes of all disease, is something called systemic inflammation. And we know now that there's 2 proteins, one being C-reactive protein, one being interleukin-6. These 2 blood proteins, where they're on a high level, Darren, they will literally drive inflammation, drive the risk for disease, drive the aging process, make us get old fast and sick on the way. And here's what we know. Simply raising our happiness, our emotional positivity, our optimistic outlook on life through self-care is one of the greatest ways to affect the systemic inflammation and help to lower those 2 proteins. The beautiful thing is you're happy. You feel that emotionally and spiritually. The really awesome thing is the inflammation in your body starts to wane and you become more alive. Now that's really cool.
Yeah. I would say the best cosmetic surgery you can have for your face is to smile, right? And
right on.
On the outside, and then certainly the happiness on the inside is going to do all the biochemistry you just talked about.